Discover the amazing secret to self-confidence, a touching story of unexpected transformation. Emma stood at the bustling nursing station, paperwork piling high, a looming reminder of her own shattered aspirations. Each night shift, she poured herself into her patients, feeling their pain seep under her skin. Yet her heart remained tethered to her son, Jake. At just 16, he stumbled through life with heavy shoulders, caught in the crossfire of cruel taunts from classmates that chipped away at his spirit. Unease twisted in her stomach as she recalled her grandfather's zealous encouragement to push boundaries, to chase dreams in medical research. In those memories, the echoes of abandonment thrummed painfully loud, a vibrant world she chose to forsake for the responsibility of motherhood. Looking at Jake, his brows furrowed in contemplation as he scrolled through social media, a pit of anxiety churned in her chest. Fear gripped her. What choices had she made that led them here? Jake was fighting demons. She could see it in the way his laughter didn't reach his eyes. How was she supposed to navigate the terrifying waters of adolescence with him when she herself felt so adrift? Just as she was drowning in her own uncertainties, an announcement from the local university flickered on her phone. A groundbreaking research project forming, promising to explore uncharted territories in medicine. Excitement sputtered dangerously close to dread. The dream she had buried crept back like a shadow, casting doubt on her resolve. Could she still step into that academic world, even if it meant confronting her long-ago mentor? Memories of disdainful dismissal and mocking laughter surfaced, and a familiar suffocation filled her lungs. The crush of inadequacy was so real it paralyzed her. Yet, as she watched Jake's fragile bravado wither, she felt a flicker of determination ignite. A chance not just for herself, but for them both. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Emma hesitated, but an idea took root. Apply for that research team, unearth those dreams, and maybe ground Jake in a newfound sense of belonging. Their path intertwined. She saw an opportunity for both to rise above their struggles. They began studying together, sharing fears, and laughter flickered like fireflies in a summer night. Yet with vulnerability came anxiety, the quiet undertone of doubt threatening to drown their budding connection. In a cruel twist, Emma found herself facing that very mentor in a pivotal project meeting, heart racing as memories of insults washed over her. Words felt trapped in her mouth,
throat, and the condescension hung heavy in the air. Could she withstand the weight of his authority, the sheer power of his scorn? Feeling Jake's unwavering gaze bore down on her, Emma was shrouded in a tumult of emotions, strength battling the demons of her past. Would she falter under scrutiny or muster her resolve? The moment stretched, teetering on the precipice of failure and triumph. A single choice, the path to reclaim her narrative, lay before her, yet uncertainty loomed, drawing dark clouds around their fragile progress. There, on the brink of confrontation, Emma clutched her son's hand, her pulse quickening as she stood at the threshold of her greatest test. The shadows crept closer. Would they pull her under? Or could she surge upward, fighting for both her dreams and Jake's place in a world that had been so unkind? Emma's heart thundered as she stood before her mentor. The shimmering lights of the conference room cast sharp angles on his sharp features, amplifying the familiar tension that had haunted her since her days as a fresh-faced student. He was no longer the imposing figure of her past, but a challenge she needed to confront, not just for herself, but for Jake, whose silent encouragement filled the space between them. She took a deep breath, grounding herself in the presence of Jake. Under his gaze, she found a flicker of strength. He believed in her. The thought pushed back against her doubts, igniting a spark of courage. Crossing the threshold felt monumental, like stepping into a new realm where she could reshape her narrative away from a life spent solely in the shadows of others' expectations. "Emma," her mentor began. His tone dripped in condescension as he gestured to the project proposal on the table. "I assume you're prepared to present your ideas on this matter. It's vital that we uphold a standard of excellence here." His words wrapped around her like a leash, meant to pull her back into the cold grip of uncertainty. Clenching her fists, she realized this moment was hers to seize, not just to appease his ego, but to assert her own identity. Flashes of her past flooded her with doubts. What if the dismissals returned? What if the others echoed his scorn? But she fought to push those thoughts aside. Today wasn't about him. It was about paving a path for herself and, by extension, for Jake. "I've gathered some innovative approaches that I think will enhance our project," she said, her voice steady despite the tremors of anxiety coursing through her. As she spoke, she could feel Jake's warmth radiating across the table. The connection between them transformed the very air. Her fears could no longer cloud the vision of what they could achieve together. With every point she made, Emma detailed new insights gleaned from her interactions with patients. Experiences that once felt overwhelming began to unveil unique perspectives that others had overlooked. Each observation was stitched together with the unyielding belief that understanding her patients was not just her role, but also her responsibility. As she concluded, the room fell silent. It was as if time stretched thin, hanging delicately on her voiced aspirations. Her mentor's skepticism glanced from her to the proposal, trying to unravel the thoughts pulling him in opposite directions: crudeness and respectability. His brow furrowed. Some part of him was shifting, recognizing her determination. "Interesting," he finally muttered, the condescension slightly subdued. But Emma could see it already, the subtle crack in his armor. The disincline within him began to flicker beneath her direct gaze. With that glimmer of acknowledgement, she could almost taste the beginnings of victory. Yet the weight of the moment pushed her to probe deeper. Could she truly make a mark here? Emma was aware that these small victories were but a precursor to the challenges lurking just beyond. Engaging with her mentor was just the first step on a mountain she was destined to climb. As the meeting wrapped up, she felt a tiny but potent flourish of success. But the echo of applause turned hollow, filled with the uncertainty of what lay ahead. She caught a glimpse of Jake, pride lighting up his face, yet she could see a tremor in his own doubt. The world could be gracious, but it could also slam doors. Had she truly begun to shift the tides for both of them? Or was this merely a moment of respite before newer challenges swept in? The climb had begun, yet the summit remained out of reach. What would she choose as the next step on this untraveled path? Emma couldn't shake the feeling that the bond they were building might lead into territories that stretched beyond the professional. Would they emerge stronger, or become ensnared by their vulnerabilities? Uncertainty loomed, yet she felt the pull of responsibility. It was time to discover what true self-confidence meant, not just for her, but for Jake too. The days following the presentation unfolded like an uncharted map, laden with possibilities, yet fraught with uncertainty. Emma found herself reflecting on the meeting more often than she expected, replaying her words and the fleeting glance of approval from her mentor. Each recollection ignited a flicker of determination inside her, yet that flame was accompanied by a growing sense of pressure. Was this moment truly transformative, or merely a fleeting echo that would fade under scrutiny? In the following week, she threw herself into her work with renewed vigor,
driven by an inner compulsion to prove that she was worthy of the space she had claimed in that conference room. Early mornings became her allies. She inhaled the fresh air as she jogged each day, trying to instill a sense of purpose into her routine. But the task ahead felt weighty. She had to turn her emerging ideas into actionable strategies that could impress not just her mentor, but also her team. One morning after a run, she returned to her apartment, the energy of the sun blazed through her window. The golden hue illuminated her desk, stacked with research papers and her notes. As she shuffled through them, a phrase struck her with clarity. Possibility breeds responsibility. She knew she had a platform, but with it came the duty to leverage her voice and insights effectively. Each interaction with her patients seemed to hold untapped value for the project, yet translating those experiences into concrete advice was a puzzle that needed solving. Emma set up a meeting with her colleagues to share her ideas. Anxiety mixed with resolve. This was her chance to engage not just as a member, but as a leader. She prepared diligently, crafting visuals and outlines that conveyed her core concepts with clarity. But as the day approached, doubts seeped in again. What if her colleagues didn't share her enthusiasm? What if her mentor remained unimpressed? As she entered the conference room on the day of the meeting, the familiar wave of trepidation washed over her. She caught sight of Jake in the crowd. His unwavering gaze anchored her. She steeled herself, reminding herself that she had something to offer. Setting her notes down, she began to speak, feeling her passion spill forth. Emma illustrated her ideas on how understanding patient experiences could create a more dynamic approach to the project. The atmosphere shifted slowly. Questions floated in from her peers, but they seemed more inquisitive than dismissive. Halfway through, she noticed her mentor's eyes narrow in concentration, sparking a curious excitement in her. Perhaps this was not simply a matter of winning his approval. It was about making space for her voice in this conversation and recognizing the value of collective expertise. As the meeting wrapped up, Emma received respectful nods from her colleagues, a stark contrast to her earlier expectations. Yet it was Jake's smile that anchored her in that moment, affirming her worth. That evening, engulfed in a mixture of exhilaration and exhaustion, Emma stood at the threshold of a new realization. She understood now that confidence was not simply an outcome of applause or recognition. Instead, it grew from the acts of sharing and engaging, of stepping into the unknown despite fear and doubt. But while her confidence blossomed, the tokens of doubt hadn't vanished entirely. She sensed a tightness within her, an intuitive awareness that she needed to examine, something deeper than the day-to-day struggles. Just as clarity settled in, an unexpected message illuminated her phone screen. Her mentor wanted to meet. The text was terse, but the implications loomed larger. What did he want? Had she genuinely shifted his perception, or was this request a harbinger of critique? As uncertainty swirled around her, Emma felt the stakes heightening. In the silence of her room, the weight of possibility and consequence hovered like an unstruck chord. What awaited her was far from clear. But the journey ahead promised to challenge her notions of trust, belief, and the very authenticity she sought to embody. Would this meeting propel her into a new realm of self-discovery, or strip away her newfound confidence? Emma sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the screen where the message lingered. Pending recognition from her mentor felt both exhilarating and terrifying. The hours leading up to the meeting turned into a relentless barrage of self-questioning. Was I convincing enough? Did I deliver my ideas with the right impact? She couldn't shake the tension in her shoulders, nor the way her heartbeat quickened with thoughts of what lay ahead. By the time she stepped into the coffee shop where they planned to meet, her thoughts felt like wildfire, erratic and consuming. The cafe buzzed with nonchalant conversations and clinking cups, but all she heard was the echo of her own concerns. She scanned the seating area, and when she spotted her mentor at a corner table, a wave of cool anticipation washed over her. "Emma, good to see you," he said, gesturing for her to sit. The warmth in his voice was a welcome contrast to the chill running through her. She took a seat, heart racing as she sought the right words to greet him. "Thanks for meeting with me. I hope I didn't take up too much of your time," she said, masking her anxiety with a professional demeanor. "Not at all. I wanted to discuss the presentation," he replied, studying her with a scrutinizing gaze that made her feel both special and exposed. "I was impressed with your insights." A sigh she didn't know she was holding escaped her lips, but his face remained solemn. This was it. This was the moment where his opinion could set the course for her future. "I appreciate the positive feedback," she said, anxiety clawing at her throat. "But I'd love to understand areas where I could improve. I want to be better, not just for myself, but for the team." He leaned back, contemplating. "Your ideas were innovative, but I felt you wavered on articulating the tangible outcomes of those ideas. It's crucial to connect theory with practice. How do we transform those insights into actionable steps?" Her mind churned. She had expected critique, knew it was part of the learning table, but this directive thrust her into the deep end. She didn't want her mentor to see her as just another cog in the machine. She wanted to stand out, to lead. "You're right," Emma began, trying to negotiate her vulnerability for clarity. "I guess I was so caught up in the conceptual framework that I neglected the specific actions we could take. It's a matter of framing the data effectively, right?" "Precisely," he said, his gaze softening. "You have great potential, Emma, and the framework you've built can lead to genuine transformations in our practice. However, you need to be the one who makes those connections evident to others." A cascade of realizations washed over her. She wasn't just presenting ideas, she was igniting change through her ability to bridge intuition and action. There was power in that role.
A responsibility to ensure clarity in communication. "Thank you for your honesty," she said, her voice steadier. "I'll work on that. There's so much I want to contribute." "I hope you do," he replied, leaning forward, palms resting on the table. "But remember, insight alone isn't enough. The delivery must also resonate with your audience. You might consider mentoring some of the junior staff on how to implement these concepts. Sharing your knowledge could elevate not just your standing, but the overall team dynamics." His suggestion highlighted the roadmap she hadn't yet envisioned. It was time to transition from the role of a passive contributor to that of a proactive leader, a mentor in her own right. As they wrapped up their discussion, Emma felt an unfamiliar sense of purpose align within her. Her mentor had inspired a new path, one that positioned her not just as a team player, but as an architect of change. Yet, deep down, a nagging thought lingered. Could she genuinely lead others if she still grappled with self-doubt? With newfound clarity, she stepped outside the cafe, her heart lighter but the question heavier. How would she confront her insecurities as she took on the mantle of mentor? What awaited her in the delicate balance of growth and vulnerability? Turning that corner into her next chapter, Emma felt the anticipation of an unfolding journey, a blend of strength and uncertainty as she prepared to rise to meet the challenge. Would this be the moment she finally discovered the depths of her resolve? Emma returned to the office with a hybrid of exhilaration and trepidation swirling within her. The cafe discussion had peeled back layers of her professional persona, uncovering a potential that felt almost foreign. The concept of mentorship loomed like a mountain peak ahead, daunting yet inviting. As she sat down at her desk, fingers poised to begin the tasks ahead, reality settled in. The first step was to bridge the gap between her aspiration and action. Eager to take immediate steps, she rifled through her notes from the meeting. One key takeaway echoed: the need to articulate actionable steps clearly. She envisioned her approach to the junior staff, a combination of guidance and collaboration. Emma began drafting an outline on how she would convey complex ideas simply yet effectively. The tension eased in her shoulders as she recognized a burgeoning sense of agency. But with this clarity came a haunting self-questioning. Would her colleagues take her seriously? The voice of doubt crept in, urging caution.
Over the years, Emma had learned to be meticulous in preparation, yet this felt different. This was not merely about presenting ideas. It demanded engagement, authenticity, and a willingness to be vulnerable. Could she truly embrace that? Emma decided to schedule a small meeting with the junior team, a trial run of sorts. She shared her intentions and laid out her outline. The days leading up to this meeting were riddled with anxiety. Each time she revisited her notes, her heart galloped at her chest. She practiced in front of her mirror, attempting to instill confidence in her voice and body language, all while battling the internal monologue that questioned her competence. The morning of the meeting arrived. She entered the conference room, where a handful of eager faces anticipated her words. As they settled in, Emma was struck by their attentiveness, and when she began to speak, the tension released a bit more. Each sentence she uttered wrapped around her intentions, compelling her to keep going. Today, I want to share not just what we can do, but how we can do it together. The phrase tumbled out, and for the first time, she genuinely believed it. However, even as she spoke with conviction, she could see moments of confusion flickering across their faces. "Can you clarify how we can adapt these concepts day to day?" one of them asked, her brow furrowed. It took Emma a moment. Her heart raced as she felt exposed. But instead of retreating, she engaged. "Absolutely, let's brainstorm together," she replied, inviting them into the conversation. What followed was an unexpected exchange of ideas and shared experiences that propelled a newfound momentum into the room. Emma guided them, providing guidance while simultaneously learning from their perspectives. Their synergy was electric, and as the session drew to a close, she recognized that vulnerability had forged a connection deeper than she anticipated. Afterward, Emma felt lighter, almost buoyant. The whispers of self-doubt were still there, but they were losing their grip. Yet an underlying question pressed down on her. Would this newfound confidence withstand the inevitable challenges ahead? Could she consistently harness this momentum when faced with obstacles? As she walked back to her desk, the chatter of the office felt invigorating. Somewhere within, the fire of determination sparked anew. With each step she took, the belief in her unfolding journey crystallized. Yet lurking in the shadows was a profound dilemma. What would she do when failure struck, and how would she navigate that landscape? It became clear to her that embracing leadership meant confronting not just her triumphs, but also her failures. Emma sat down, pen in hand, ready to chart her growth, knowing the next chapter of her journey would delve deeper into those uncharted waters. What would it truly mean to lead in moments of uncertainty? How would she discover resilience amidst the doubt? The next few weeks unfolded with a rhythm Emma hadn't anticipated. The initial meeting had sparked her curiosity about leadership, and now each encounter with the junior team felt like a new opportunity to learn, not just from them, but about herself. Emma welcomed their questions and encouraged their contributions, carefully integrating their insights into her presentations. Each feedback session, however, also unearthed deeper layers of anxiety. A month into this journey, a more significant challenge loomed. The annual performance review presentations were on the horizon, and Emma dreaded the idea of standing in front of senior management. Would she falter under their gaze? The stakes felt higher, and she questioned her ability to articulate the recent changes she'd helped foster. The vulnerability she had embraced earlier now felt like a double-edged sword. As she prepared for her own presentation, Emma noticed the way her hands trembled slightly as she organized her notes. The anxiety of speaking to a higher authority was a familiar beast, one she thought had been tamed in her earlier years. A wave of discontent washed over her. If she was to be a mentor, she needed to embody the confidence she preached. "Focus on what you've achieved," a whisper in her head advised. Yet, as she sat down to outline her presentation, a new fear sprawled inside her. What if her ideas didn't resonate? What if they thought her insights were naive and inexperienced? The seductive grip of self-doubt tightened, stifling her creative flow. With determination, Emma reached out to a former mentor, seeking guidance. The ensuing coffee meeting reverberated with familiar warmth and wisdom. Her mentor emphasized the importance of storytelling, sharing contextual experiences that shaped her understanding of leadership. "You're not just presenting facts, Emma. You need to share your journey," they encouraged, their gaze unwavering. The memories of past challenges surfaced, reminding her how far she had come. Infused with a renewed perspective, Emma returned to her desk. She began weaving her narrative into the presentation, detailing not just changes she'd facilitated, but the emotional landscape that paved the way for those shifts. Each revision brought her closer to a genuine connection with her audience, stripping away the performance facade she struggled against. Embracing her own vulnerabilities, she realized her journey had the potential to inspire others. But a dark cloud loomed just ahead. As Emma finalized her presentation, she learned of a rival project that had also caught management's attention. With each passing day, doubts crept back in. Would her passion-driven narrative match the sleek, data-heavy approach of her competition? The thought hung heavily, marking her progress with uncertainty. The day of the presentation arrived, and Emma stood before her colleagues, heart pounding yet electric with anticipation. As she began, her voice grew steadier, empowered by her backstory and the lessons learned from her team. Still, the specter of comparison haunted her. The pressure mounted as she observed the expressions of her listeners shift between intrigue and indifference. In the midst of her narrative, a question echoed in her mind. Would her authenticity hold its ground when faced with critique? Her thoughts swirled, but she pressed forward, allowing herself to be vulnerable in front of her peers. As she shared a misstep she'd taken early in her career, one that nearly derailed her path, she felt the atmosphere shift. They leaned in, intrigued by her sincerity, craving to connect with the real, unpolished Emma instead of a rehearsed version. Emma concluded, breathless yet unburdened. She'd not only reclaimed her narrative, but was now learning to own her space. The question remained, however, could she sustain this sense of self with the looming threat of competition? In the stillness that followed, a deep-seated tension lingered. Would acceptance come after the storm of evaluations, or would it reveal another layer to her evolving identity? As the critical evaluations approached, Emma could not shake the feeling that the real examination of her growth was yet to come. Would she summon the courage to stand firm against judgments she feared would tear away her newfound confidence? The days following her presentation were a whirlwind of emotions for Emma. She had laid bare her journey, her vulnerabilities, and her aspirations. Yet the uncertainty lingered like a thick fog, obscuring her path forward. Her trust in her abilities, once steady, now felt brittle, just waiting for the right moment to shatter. As the evaluations approached, colleagues expressed their admiration for her candor. "You really opened up out there," one coworker remarked in passing. "I think it resonated with a lot of us." But Emma found it challenging to absorb those words. Instead, they felt like echoes in a chamber. They reverberated, but didn't touch the depth of her anxiety. She pored over her notes, rehearsing possible questions her peers might ask. What if they wanted her to defend her choices or dissect her data-driven competitors? The prospect terrified her, yet the preparation became a valuable distraction from the gnawing unrest beneath her surface. In the quiet corners of the office, she noticed her junior team members murmuring about the rival project. They seemed eager to compare Emma's storytelling approach to the more analytical tactics of her competitor. The fear of comparison morphed into something darker, an ever-present shadow that tainted her optimism. She confronted herself each night, asking whether she could really stand on her convictions when every measure against the competition felt like an indictment of her style. By the time the evaluation day dawned, Emma had become a bundle of nerves. The thought of receiving feedback that could redefine her aspirations plagued her thoughts. She decided to take an early morning walk, hoping fresh air might clear the fog of anxiety clinging to her mind. With each step, she recalled the lessons her mentor had imparted, particularly about embracing her authentic self. Maybe, she thought, this is about more than just me. It's about fostering a culture where authentic communication is valued more than simply delivering numbers. As the sun began to rise, painting the streets in hues of gold, a spark ignited within her. Arriving at the office, Emma noticed her colleagues gathering, some discussing performance metrics while others animatedly debated approaches. She hesitated, not wanting to disturb the synergy building in the room. Instead, she settled in a nearby corner, observing the dynamics at play. Her earlier fears began to diminish as she realized that this was not a battle of adversaries. It was an opportunity to learn and grow. Gradually, she felt a shift within herself. Perhaps competition was not a threat, but a catalyst. Emma pondered how it was possible to coexist with opposing methodologies. What would happen if she leaned into her approach while also respecting the strengths of her competitors? The evaluations began with a round of presentations from her colleagues. Each speaker unveiled their insights with varying degrees of confidence, some commanding presence, others timidly laying out facts. Emma felt a swell of anticipation as she prepared for her turn. The tension was palpable, gripping with a fresh intensity that pushed her from within. When it was finally her moment, she stood up, projecting not just her artifact of analysis, but her entire journey, vulnerabilities and all. This time, as she spoke, she felt not just the weight of criticism, but the thrill of potential connection. She saw nods of understanding and engagement in the eyes of her colleagues, fostering a sense of unity. By the time her presentation concluded, Emma found herself inviting questions rather than recoiling from them. Unbeknownst to her, this shift was the hallmark of true leadership, an acknowledgement that confidence did not require perfection, but a willingness to embrace and learn from uncertainty. As the evaluation session reached its end, Emma realized that her growth had extended beyond her own fears and aspirations. But just as relief started to settle in, a senior manager asked a question she hadn't anticipated, a question that could unravel the layered narrative she had carefully constructed. "Emma, how do you plan to integrate your style with the data-driven approach of competitors moving forward?" The moment hung in the air. Would she solidify her newfound identity, or would the pressure of expectation derail her growth? The room was electrified by the senior manager's question, and all eyes bore in to Emma. Instinctively, she felt the heat rush to her cheeks, a mix of vulnerability and an urgent need to assert her position. This was a pivotal moment, one that could either galvanize her newfound sense of self or expose her old insecurities. Taking a deep breath, Emma decided to embrace the tension, seeing it not as an adversary but as an invitation to clarify her vision. "I believe the fusion of authentic storytelling and data-driven analysis can create a more holistic understanding of our projects," she began, her voice steadying as she spoke. "My approach isn't just about the narrative, it's about translating insights into meaningful actions." She noticed nods of encouragement around the room, acts of validation fueling her resolve. "By leveraging data to support our stories, we can ensure our recommendations are not only compelling but also backed by solid evidence. It becomes a dialogue rather than a dichotomy." The weight lifted slightly. The response had transformed the pressure into an opportunity. Yet a flicker of doubt trickled in. Could she genuinely bridge the gap between these two methodologies? Even as her words found form, internal questions sprang forth, demanding her attention. Perhaps this process could enrich her understanding, but was she capable of orchestrating this integration without losing the essence of her narrative style? Post-evaluation, Emma remained in the meeting room, engaging in her colleagues' discussions with renewed fervor. She participated actively, absorbing critiques and suggestions. However, even amidst the buzz, an introspective voice crept in, whispering fears she thought she had quelled. What if she failed to unify these disparate approaches? What if her efforts fell short, deemed ineffective by those who preferred grinding metrics over emotive engagement? As the hours ticked by and the conversations shifted, Emma released her anxiety into the rhythm of the discussions. She recognized that the fears nagging at her didn't stem from external judgment, but from a deep-rooted belief. To be adept in one realm didn't require the dismissal of another. Later that night, alone in her apartment, Emma opened her journal. The blank page became her confidant, a place free of expectations. She began to write, detailing not just her achievements, but the ways she planned to enhance her approach. What strategies could she adopt that would respect both data and narrative? What insights could she harvest from her competitors? This transformation wasn't simply about blending styles. It was about cultivating her growth as a leader. The ink flowed freely, and with each line, she unearthed revelations disguised as uncertainties. Perhaps the narrative she had initially crafted wasn't just her story. It represented the larger narrative of her growth trajectory. It was about understanding her place within a spectrum of methodologies, learning to weave her essence into an evolving organization. Yet, as the night wore on, a creeping sense of urgency shadowed her reflections. She realized that these initial ideas were merely seeds. What if further scrutiny unearthed flaws in her proposed integration? Each word she penned felt like a commitment, but she hadn't yet outlined the full tapestry of execution. The complexity of continuous learning loomed large. As she closed her journal, determination pulsed within her. Emma understood that this integration would not be simple, but this recognition fueled a deeper aspiration. How far was she willing to push her development? The challenge ahead wasn't just to reconcile her identity, but to harness her evolution into a bold, cohesive vision that could lead her team into the future. Not knowing what awaited her, Emma's aunt swirled with possibilities and lingering doubts. The next day would bring discussions, opinions to weigh, and strategies to navigate. Little did she know that her revelation would force her to confront a much sharper reality, one that would test not only her professional resolve, but her entire worldview on leadership. She peered into the unknown, sensing a pivotal confrontation on the horizon, one that would uncover the depths of her uncharted capabilities. As dawn broke, casting a golden hue into her bedroom, Emma rose with a resurgence of purpose. The fluorescent glare of the clock struck 7 a.m., but it felt more like the beginning of an adventure rather than just another day at work. With every leap of her heart, she embraced the challenge ahead. Today was not just another routine. It was an opportunity to further her journey toward professional mastery. Arriving at the office, Emma noted her colleagues engaged in their usual morning rituals. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, filling her with a sense of nostalgia. Yet, this familiar environment felt different. It felt charged, as if everyone shared a collective anticipation for what her growing vision might yield. As she stepped into the meeting room, the atmosphere shifted. The executives sat poised, awaiting her insights on her proposed integration of storytelling and data analysis. Despite the calm exterior, a torrent of concern twisted within her. Would they see the value she saw? Would their acceptance bolster her confidence or highlight her vulnerabilities? Today, I want to present a framework that respects both data-driven decisions and authentic narratives, she began, her palms slightly clammy but her voice resolute. By framing her ideas as a roadmap rather than a monologue, she aimed to foster engagement and collaboration among her peers. The reactions varied, some nods of agreement shining brightly, while others were muddled with skepticism. The senior manager, whose piercing gaze had initially unsettled her, raised a hand, his brow furrowing as he asked, "But how can we ensure that this narrative doesn't overshadow the imperative of our data?" Emma inhaled sharply, feeling her heart race. This was the moment that her resolve would either shatter or solidify. "That's precisely why I aim to intertwine both disciplines," she asserted. "We won't be trading one for the other. Rather, we will leverage each to enhance comprehension and engagement. Data must serve the narrative, and the narrative must illuminate the data." As she spoke, a quiet force began to build within her. With every sentence, the fissure between her old self-doubts and her emerging confidence began to narrow. In those moments, she recognized a hidden capability. The ability to navigate the space between skepticism and enthusiasm was a skill she had overlooked. "Let's trial this synergy with our next campaign," Emma suggested, buoyed by her emerging authority. We can conduct a workshop to refine the storylines while embedding data-driven insights at each stage. The room buzzed with murmured discussions, each partnership and question further establishing the foundation she sought to build. However, the thrill was tempered by the realization that ambition breeds scrutiny. What if they rejected her campaign? What if her peers preferred the safety of conventional methods? Doubt's once insistent whispers turned into a cacophony threatening to engulf her newfound confidence. Nacho, a seasoned analyst known for his unwavering rationale, defended the need for her concept but posed a challenge. It's vital that your proposed methods maintain credibility. Can you back your insights with tangible outcomes? Emma felt threatened but found strength in having prepared for this moment. Absolutely. I'll develop parameters for measuring this integration in real time, she replied, her tone earnest. We will utilize metrics not just as benchmarks, but as vital contributors to our storytelling process. As the meeting drew to a close and she exited the room amidst discussion and speculation, a sense of exhilaration flooded over her. She had initiated a wave of potential transformation, igniting action and anticipation. Yet a nagging thought remained, laced with uncertainty. Could she sustain this momentum? Would her vision withstand the pressures of implementation? Even as time moved forward, the pivotal confrontation with her own fears lingered. Every new challenge seemed like a delicate tightrope walk. Emma gazed out the window at the bustling city, feeling as though a new chapter had begun, yet the outline remained incomplete. Could she push beyond the confines of her imagination? Tomorrow would demand more than just words. It would require initiatives grounded in results. The stakes were higher now, and with them came a potent realization. Her resilience as a leader would be tested beyond expectations. As the sun began to set, casting shadows that danced on her office walls, Emma's heart quickened. It was time to confront the reality of her emerging leadership, one defined by continuous growth amidst the promise of the unknown. The weeks that followed propelled Emma into a vibrant new chapter of her professional life. With each initiative she spearheaded, her confidence began to solidify. The framework she had proposed, merging authentic storytelling with data-driven insights, quickly gained traction among her colleagues and proved effective in the ongoing project campaign. While the initial fears of rejection still surfaced periodically, Emma found strength in the resilience she was continually developing. She had organized workshops where her junior team members engaged with the narrative-building process, learning to spotlight patient experiences as key elements that informed their data metrics. Emma had effectively created a collaborative environment where each voice was valued, and ideas flowed seamlessly, an accomplishment she had not previously thought possible. One day, as she prepared for a pivotal presentation to upper management, Emma couldn't shake the familiar flutter of nerves. Yet this time they felt different, charged with anticipation instead of uncertainty. Reflecting on how far she had come, she took a moment to breathe deeply. Just months earlier, she had struggled with voicing her ideas and felt paralyzed by doubt. Now she stood on the cusp of presenting a project that embodied her vision, one she built from her dedication and the lessons learned throughout her journey. The meeting room filled quickly, and as she scanned the room, she observed the eager faces of her colleagues, many of whom had initially raised skepticism about her approach. Now they seemed curious and supportive, a testament to the evolution of their collective narrative. When it was her turn to present, Emma felt a calm determination well up inside her. The echoes of past dismissal faded into a distant memory as she began speaking with conviction. Today, I want to share how we can transform our understanding of patient experiences into measurable outcomes that enhance both our data collection methods and storytelling techniques, she articulated confidently. With every slide she presented, she demonstrated the synergy between both approaches, instilling excitement around the potential they could achieve together. Halfway through, a familiar face broke the silence, her former mentor. He had been critical in the past, and now she could see the spark of recognition in his eyes. You've really expanded on your initial ideas, Emma. This approach could redefine how we engage with our patients and the data we gather, he admitted, setting a tone of unexpected camaraderie. A wave of satisfaction washed over Emma. His acknowledgement felt like a seal on her transformation. As she delved into her conclusions, outlining next steps, she realized her growth stemmed not just from the visible competency she had achieved, but from being true to herself, embracing both successes and setbacks. When the meeting wrapped up, she stayed back for a brief moment, savoring the feedback her colleagues shared with her. Applause echoed as she left the room, and for the first time in her career, her heart swelled with pride. Accepting the tension between her fears and accomplishments was liberating. Later that evening, Emma received an email from the management team. Her project had been greenlit for an extensive trial run. The realization hit like lightning. Her ideas were taking root beyond their immediate setting. She had earned recognition for her innovative approach, something she had once thought impossible. That night, as she settled onto her couch with Jake, the weight of her journey resonated deeply within her. They reflected on their shared challenges over the past months, and Emma recognized that her growth mirrored not only her professional ascent, but also the strength of the bond she had built with her son. Jake, witnessing her transformation, found a flicker of inspiration igniting in his own spirit. Emma smiled. She had harnessed her struggles to push forward, and in doing so, she discovered a relentless determination nested inside her, an anthem of resilience. Emboldened by her journey, Emma realized that she had become a beacon of confidence and commitment for herself and her family. This narrative was no longer just her own. It was woven into their shared story of growth, interconnected in a tapestry of perseverance and self-discovery. She no longer felt tethered to her past, but liberated by the person she was becoming. As she embraced her new role, her heart brimmed with the promise of future accomplishments and the hope of what lay ahead. The journey of transformation would continue, and she was ready. Together. Now, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to not miss out on more exclusive emotional stories like Emma's. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep these transformative narratives alive. Don't wait even one more second to share this story with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion. Comment your thoughts and reactions. Join the conversation because your voice matters.